Mars rises in the east as a red point of light, visible to the naked eye, and every civilization in recorded history has named it, watched it, and tried to account for its distinctive color. Modern planetary science explains that color as iron oxide, rust covering a world that lost its atmosphere and its liquid water billions of years ago. The Book of Enoch does not describe Mars by name. What it does describe, in the astronomical book and in the broader cosmological framework of the Enochic tradition, is a structured heavens containing multiple worlds, some of which are described as having been judged, stripped of their protective covering, and rendered lifeless. The question this documentary examines honestly is whether any authenticated ancient text describes specific physical features of Mars, and what the relationship between Enochic cosmology and modern planetary science actually looks like when examined through peer-reviewed sources rather than proposed correspondences. The answer is more nuanced and more interesting than either enthusiastic confirmation or flat dismissal. Before we go further, subscribe now if this kind of textual and historical exploration is what you are here for. Every week this channel examines ancient texts, scholarly debates, and interpretive questions at the edges of mainstream scholarship. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. What the authenticated Enochic texts actually say about other worlds. The astronomical book of 1st Enoch, chapters 72 through 82, with Aramaic fragments dated to the 3rd century BCE at Qumran, describes a cosmos of multiple heavens, multiple regions, and a structured divine administration of celestial bodies. The luminaries move through gate systems maintained by angelic assignment. The system is ordered, administered, and capable of disruption. What the astronomical book does not contain, in any authenticated version across the 3 independent manuscript traditions, is a specific description of Mars, its red surface, its thin atmosphere, its 2 moons, or a canyon system. No such passage appears in the Qumran Aramaic fragments, the Ethiopian Ge'ez manuscripts, or the Greek Achmim fragment, as translated by any peer-reviewed scholar. This needs to be stated clearly because this documentary's subject involves a proposed passage, described in some alternative research accounts as a red world passage from a subseries of Qumran fragments designated 4Q Enoch G, that does not appear in the published scholarly record of Enoch manuscripts. The published Qumran Enoch fragments are designated 4Q201 through 4Q212. No authenticated fragment within or adjacent to this series describes Mars, its moons, or the departure of beings from it in the form described in the source material for this documentary. Joseph Millick's 1976 critical edition of the Qumran Enoch fragments, James Vanderkam's extensive published work on the Enochic tradition, and George Nicholsberg's 2001 Hermeneia commentary on 1st Enoch, the 3 most authoritative scholarly references for this material, do not reference a red world passage or a 4Q Enoch G subseries containing Mars descriptions. The claim that Millick referenced such material in private correspondence but excluded it from his published volume is an unverified account that has not been confirmed through his published academic record or through any other documented scholarly source. What George Nicholsberg has actually written, in documented, published form, is that the cosmological passages of the Enoch tradition, specifically the sections dealing with the structure of the heavens, remain understudied relative to their significance. That observation is real and documented. It does not mean those passages describe Mars. It means they have not received the scholarly attention their complexity warrants. Florentino Garcia Martinez's 1994 Dead Sea Scrolls translation is a real standard reference. A specific 1998 paper in which he described a red world passage as requiring a cosmological framework that scholarship is not prepared to supply has not been confirmed through his published bibliography. The attribution of this specific quote to him should be understood as unverified. What Mars science has actually found, stated accurately. The genuine planetary science findings about Mars are remarkable and worth stating accurately, without false connection to ancient texts. Mars's surface is red because of iron oxide, rust, covering the surface. This is basic planetary geology, well established and not in dispute. Mars has 2 moons, Phobos and Deimos. Both were discovered in 1877 by American astronomer Asaph Hall using the U.S. Naval Observatory's telescope in Washington, D.C. Both are small and irregular in shape, believed by mainstream planetary science to be captured asteroids rather than formed from Mars itself. Phobos orbits Mars in approximately 7 hours and 39 minutes, faster than Mars rotates. This means, from the surface of Mars, Phobos would rise in the west and set in the east, moving visibly across the sky within a single night. This is a genuine and remarkable feature of Phobos's orbit, documented in planetary science. Whether any ancient observer could have known about Mars's two moons before their 1877 discovery is a question worth addressing directly. The moons are not visible to the naked eye from Earth. They require telescope magnification to observe. No ancient astronomer, however sophisticated, had access to the technology needed to detect them. Their discovery in 1877 by Hall, using one of the most powerful telescopes then available, was not straightforward. Hall initially failed to find them, and nearly abandoned the search before finally detecting Phobos and then Deimos within days. Mars has no global magnetic field. NASA's MAVEN mission, which has been studying Mars's upper atmosphere since 2014, has confirmed that solar wind continues to strip away Mars's remaining atmosphere at approximately 100 grams per second. Principal investigator Bruce Jakosky of the University of Colorado published these findings in Science in 2015. The MAVEN mission established that Mars lost the bulk of its atmosphere after its magnetic field collapsed approximately 4 billion years ago, leaving the surface exposed to solar radiation and solar wind. This process stripped the atmosphere, then the liquid surface water followed. The result is the dry, irradiated red surface Mars has today. In 2018, the European Space Agency's MARSIS radar instrument detected evidence of a subglacial liquid water reservoir beneath Mars's south polar ice cap, buried approximately 1.5 kilometers below the surface. The finding was published in Science and represents a significant discovery in Mars astrobiology. Whether the water is habitable and whether it remains liquid due to geothermal activity or dissolved salts is an active area of ongoing research. Valles Marineris is real and genuinely remarkable. It is approximately 4,000 kilometers long, up to 200 kilometers wide in places, and up to 7 kilometers deep. It is the largest canyon system in the solar system. Its formation is understood in mainstream planetary science as a result of tectonic stretching and volcanic activity rather than water erosion. These are all genuine, peer-reviewed scientific findings. They are worth knowing accurately, and they paint a picture of a world that was once significantly different from its current state. The Cydonia controversy. Documented history, accurate context. The Cydonia region of Mars and the Face Formation are a documented chapter in the history of planetary science and public engagement with Mars exploration. NASA's Viking 1 spacecraft photographed the Cydonia region of Mars on July 25, 1976. One image, frame 35A72, showed a mesa formation approximately 1.5 kilometers across that, in that image's lighting and resolution, appeared to resemble a human face. NASA scientists noted it at the time as a trick of light and shadow and did not treat it as a significant finding. Public interest in the formation grew significantly in subsequent years. Richard Hoagland, a former NASA consultant and science writer, published extensive analysis arguing that geometric relationships between formations in the Cydonia region were consistent with deliberate construction. Hoagland's analysis is a documented part of the public history of Mars exploration, though his conclusions are not accepted within mainstream planetary science. In April 1998, NASA's Mars Global Surveyor photographed the Cydonia Face Formation at significantly higher resolution. The new images clearly showed a natural geological mesa, without the face-like features apparent in the 1976 image. NASA published these images and they are publicly available. The mainstream planetary science community's position that the formation is a natural geological feature whose face-like appearance in the 1976 image was a result of low resolution, sun angle, and pareidolia has not changed based on subsequent higher resolution imaging. The question of whether any structures in the Cydonia region represent non-natural formations has not been officially investigated beyond what remote imaging has established. The imaging data available does not support the conclusion of artificial structures. That does not mean the question has been exhaustively examined. Mars surface investigation remains limited by the scope and cost of robotic exploration missions. What the Enochic tradition actually says about cosmic judgment. The Enochic tradition does describe divine judgment falling on worlds and beings that transgressed. This is documented throughout 1st Enoch. The Watcher narrative, the Flood, and the cosmic disruptions of Chapter 80 all involve divine judgment stripping away protection, shelter, or capacity from those under sentence. The concept of divine judgment removing a world's protective covering, its atmosphere, its waters, its capacity to sustain life, is not found in authenticated Enochic texts as a description of Mars specifically. It is found as a general theological category in the text framework of cosmic justice. Whether this theological category, judgment as removal of protective covering, was independently confirmed by Mars's actual geological history, magnetospheric collapse leading to atmospheric loss of liquid water, and irradiation of the surface, is the proposed correspondence at the center of this documentary's subject. Stated accurately, the process that made Mars what it is today, magnetospheric collapse, solar wind stripping of the atmosphere, retreat of liquid water into subsurface rock and ice, does resemble the structure of what the Enochic texts call judgment. Both involve removal of protective covering followed by progressive exposure and desolation. Whether this resemblance reflects genuine ancient knowledge of Mars's geological fate, represents a remarkable coincidence between an ancient theological framework and a planetary process discovered in the 20th century, or reflects a more general pattern in how both ancient theology and planetary science describe worlds becoming uninhabitable, is a question that mainstream scholarship in neither Enochic studies nor planetary science has engaged with directly or reached conclusions about. That is an honest statement of where the proposed correspondence sits. The ancient knowledge of Mars question: what can and cannot be established? There is one question at the heart of this documentary that deserves a direct and honest answer. Could any ancient writer have known the specific physical features of Mars described in the source material for this documentary? Its red surface, thin atmosphere, subsurface water, 2 fast-moving moons, and vast canyon system. The red surface, yes. Mars's red color is visible to the naked eye and was observed and recorded by ancient astronomers across many cultures. Ancient knowledge of the red color is not remarkable. The thin atmosphere, and no rain, no. Atmospheric conditions on other planets cannot be observed from Earth with the naked eye or with any instrument available before the modern era. Ancient writers had no mechanism for knowing Mars had a thin atmosphere. Subsurface water, no. The subglacial water reservoir was detected by radar instrumentation on an orbiting spacecraft. No ancient observer had access to this information. 2 fast-moving moons, no. As noted above, the Martian moons are not visible without telescopic magnification. They were not discovered until 1877. No ancient observer could have known about them. Valles Marineris, no. The canyon system is not visible from Earth even with modern telescopes. It was discovered through spacecraft imaging. This analysis establishes clearly that the physical features of Mars attributed to ancient Enochic texts in the source material for this documentary are features that no ancient observer could have known through any available means. Their presence in the proposed Red World passage, a passage not found in any authenticated manuscript, therefore cannot be evaluated as ancient knowledge, because the passage itself is not verified to exist in the authenticated textual record. What can be independently verified? The astronomical Book of Enoch is a real ancient text with Qumran Aramaic fragments dated to the 3rd century BCE. The text describes a structured cosmos administered by angelic beings. Chapter 80 describes cosmic disruption including a moon that alters her order. Nickelsburg, Vanderkam, and Garcia Martinez are real scholars with verifiable published work on these texts. Mars has 2 moons discovered in 1877. Mars lost its magnetic field approximately 4 billion years ago and subsequently lost most of its atmosphere through solar wind stripping, documented by NASA's MAVEN mission in findings published by Yakowski in Science in 2015. The subglacial water detection was published by the European Space Agency in 2018. Valles Marineris is real. The Viking 1 Cydonia face formation and the 1998 higher resolution imaging are documented history. What has not been independently verified, the existence of a Red World passage in any authenticated Enoch manuscript. The 4Q Enoch G fragment subseries as described. The specific quotes attributed to Garcia Martinez and others regarding this passage. The connection between any authenticated Enochic text and specific physical features of Mars. What this documentary does not endorse, the claim that beings from Mars descended to Earth and became the watchers of the Enochic tradition. The claim that the Cydonia structures are artificial. The claim that ancient authors possessed knowledge of Martian features that were not discoverable without spacecraft. The genuine story here has 2 parts that are each worth knowing accurately. First, the Enochic tradition does describe a cosmos of multiple heavens, multiple worlds, and a divine administration of celestial bodies that can be stripped of their protective covering through judgment. That theological framework is documented in authenticated ancient texts and is worth engaging with seriously on its own terms. Second, Mars's actual geological history, magnetospheric collapse, atmospheric loss, retreat of liquid water, surface irradiation, is one of the most remarkable stories in planetary science, relevant to questions about the potential for past life on Mars and about what planetary habitability requires. The MAVEN mission's ongoing findings, the subglacial water detection, and future Mars exploration all represent genuinely significant scientific work worth following. Whether those two things, an ancient theological framework and a modern planetary science story, point toward each other in any meaningful way, is a question that cannot currently be answered from either direction with the evidence available. The red light in the eastern sky is there every night. What it tells us, and what ancient writers understood about it, is a genuinely open question worth examining honestly.